welcome back to the Freedom Salon podcast. I'm Whitney, and I'm here with Amy Lee. She is a digital content creator and digital artist, and I'm so excited to talk to you today about everything.
Yeah.
So go ahead, let's tell your story. How did you get to what you're doing? Where do you work now? What's all your titles?
Sure. So I started photography when I was like really young, like 15. And then, once I got to college, I was majoring in something else, but then I switched over to photo because it was just what made me the happiest.
Yes.
And then through that, I got a job working for Altered State in Maryville.
Oh, I love Altered State. I love them.
Yeah. So I did a lot of like studio work for them, like mostly e-commerce, like product page type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then a little bit of content creating kind of on the side because it was like a 4-person team. So kind of everybody did a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And then one of the women who came in, I was kind of basically an intern.
Mm-hmm.
Pandemic hit and I was like, I need a big girl job.
Yes.
So then I started, looking for work. And one of the women who came in was like, you would be great at my old job. Mm-hmm. And so I literally emailed JTV customer service and I was like, hey, I just met this girl. Here's my resume. Can I apply for her old job?
Yes.
And then a couple weeks later, my boss now emailed me back and that's how I kind of got started there. But I got hired to do like videography alongside the lifestyle photographer and then a lot of content creating for their social media team.
Okay.
And that looks like a lot of video, a lot of stop motion animation, which is really fun.
Yes.
And photography as well.
Yeah.
And then throughout all of that, I've also, I still continue to freelance under my own name and my own business.
Okay. And what's the name of that? So everyone knows.
It's Vision by Amy, but I kind of like, I don't know. If you just reach out to me, like I'm my business.
Yes. So. No. Listen, like my business, my salon started out like it was like literally me in the beginning. So I love that so much because it's crazy when we sit down and talk a few years from now, like what we can actually say and how that even grows.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think when it's just you and you pour your heart and soul into a business, like it really flourishes. So I love that. Yes.
So like when I was in college, like that paid my rent,
Yeah.
But then now it's just something I do when I have the time and I want to pick up like clients that I'm inspired to work for kind of thing. Which right now is a lot of commercial clients and mostly salons.
Yeah.
That's
so fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun because I think photography and hairstyling and things like that actually fall in line a lot with the people who do those jobs have similar like lifestyles in the sense of like there's the things that you do every single day, which I'm assuming is like hair trims, bang trims, things like that are just like maintenance. Yes. And for me, that's like, photos of different products and things like that. Yeah. And then there's the stuff you do on the side where you're like, this is more fun, more creative, and exercising that energy.
I know. And I feel like you have to have a space to put your creative energy in.
Absolutely.
Because like it can get really dull and I feel like you can get stuck if you're just in the mundane things without like adding something crazy in there.
Yeah. I think that, and there is a such thing as like overworking it too.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think that it's really important to approach your work, even the mundane stuff, artfully.
Yes.
And then exercising your creative energy outside of that allows you to do that easier.
I love that. So when you work for Joy Television, which is awesome, like it's such a huge name here in Knoxville. Yeah. Yes. Did you have like a passion for jewelry when you started or was it more just you loved retail?
I really wanted to be in fashion. And actually at Altered, I ended up kind of like picking up what they would call flats a lot.
Okay.
And their flats is like you're over the jewelry. It's on like a flat table. It's flat lay photography.
Yes. Okay.
And I picked up a lot of that, which for Altered is a lot of jewelry.
Yes.
So kind of by accident, my portfolio was really reflecting that. And that's kind of what JTV what piqued their interest in me.
Yes.
Actually, shooting for jewelry photography, I would really encourage anybody who's never done it but is interested in photography to work on it because it's so technical.
Yes.
Gold and silver and metals are basically like mirrors. You have to be really careful about how you reflect light and how you direct your light.
Yeah.
And it's becomes a really fun technical exercise.
No, I bet. And then too, to where you don't see, like, I feel like we are kind of like that in the salon with like mirrors, like trying to get yourself out of the shot, like when you're trying to shoot something.
Yeah,
so
it's always
is it
fun.
the same with like jewelry, like trying to not get yourself in it? Or
absolutely.
change the color of it.
Yeah, it's always fun when you kind of zoom in. You're like, there's me.
Yes.
in this ring.
Yes.
You know, and you don't want that, so you put up like a million bounces. A lot of my job is building makeshift light boxes, essentially.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, you know, we'll set up jewelry television kind of has two branches. They launched a new company called Jedora.
Okay. And what do they do?
So they do higher end jewelry.
Okay.
I would say. And it's more so like sort of like the Amazon for jewelry. It's a bunch of different vendors and it's a marketplace.
Okay. That's awesome.
So their style is more elevated. They do a lot more like studio lighting. And then jewelry television is almost always natural light. So the natural light stuff, you're building a light box basically outside a window to get as much light through as you can. And then the studio side is more like, you know, you're building, there's like a black room and you've got to make white everywhere.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that. I bet that's really cool. Like just to kind of figure out the best way. Do you get to see the product before you shoot it to kind of get your creative?
A little bit. It depends. For JTV, almost always. For Jedora, because it's other vendors, not so much. Because we kind of just get what we get.
Okay.
But both of them work from like an art board or like a mood board.
Okay. I love mood boards.
So you get an idea of what the look's going to be.
Yeah. Now, can you have creative freedom with that mood board, or can you be like, I think it would be great for this, or do you?
So there's an art director who puts that together.
Okay.
But she's a really cool person. So she puts something up there. She often asks, you know, for our feedback.
Yes.
But then outside of jewelry television, Jedora, I would make my own for whatever
for your clients
or for whatever creative project I'm working on.
Yeah. So you've worked with the salons.
Yeah.
So tell me how you got into that, because I know our listeners are in the salon world, and it can be intimidating, and it can be very daunting to always come up with content, because we went to school to do hair.
Yeah.
We didn't go to school to be a photographer, a reel maker, all the things. But then as things, there wasn't even Instagram when I first started doing hair. So that's how old I am.
That's crazy.
I know. But so you kind of have to have those things to have a successful brand in the beauty world. So what started that for you?
Yeah. So for me, it was more so like started from a friendship. So I have this friend, Ben Prager. He's amazing.
Yeah.
And he started at Natural Alternative Salon right after he graduated from Aveda.
They're such a cool brand.
Yeah, definitely his vibe too. Very like earthy and grounded. And I really love a lot of their values too.
Yes.
So Ben and I are creative partners. We work on a lot of things together. So when he got over there, he was kind of like, okay, what can we do? You know?
Yeah.
And it started with like seasonal shoots. And we would he would put together, you know, as the creative director, would put together like a mood board, or this is kind of my vision.
Yeah.
And then we would break it down, like what kind of backdrop do we need? What do we want the lighting to look like? Kind of like starting general and then breaking it down into smaller decisions.
Yes.
I think that makes it a little bit less intimidating.
Yes.
And also, you know, part of it too was like he had me who knows what I'm doing, you know? So I think like it's a big thing for salons to collaborate with like a photographer throughout the process, so that they don't have to like come up with this stuff themselves.
I know. Yes. And I feel like sometimes, especially doing our own work, I can get stuck with what I'm seeing, and it's so nice to have a fresh set of eyes. So like come into the salon and like maybe look at our Instagram and kind of see what our style is and be like, okay, like this is where I think we can elevate you.
Yeah, totally.
To the next level, because it can be really easy to do the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like that was a good part about working with Ben specifically. He is really good at that. Sort of overall vision, like he wants to get into creative directing and stuff like that, and it's very much his like, deal. Yeah. So it was cool to start with like, here's our vibe. He'll throw something out there and I'll be like, yes, I know exactly what you mean. So a lot of that is kind of our collaboration style too.
I love that.
Yeah.
So whenever a salon sets that up, how many stylists participate? Do you leave that up to the business? Do you kind of say, okay, like, in order to get the content we want, we need this many models, this many stylists? Like, what is that process?
Yeah,
like?
It's very collaborative with me and Ben, especially because like in these instances, it's not like, you know, we're not going to an agency and like paying models. A lot of times they want people who
we all have that client. I feel like.
They're clients.
That's
and it's like, okay, I did
her
hair. So this is a representation of like what our salon can do for a client. So it was a lot of like, it started with basically a meeting and you have all the interested stylists and each person was like, you know, I have somebody and we got kind of a number. And then from there we kind of would build like, okay, here based off this mood board, like so-and-so maybe wants to look like this.
Yeah.
And kind of building from there. All of them have had themes too, and like not necessarily kitschy, but like choosing a direction and then each decision holding it up to that direction and saying, is this going the right way, basically? So that, I think that's the biggest part of it, is like most of the time when you get down to it, you have the resources. It's a matter of refining and almost cutting back that needs to be done in order to elevate it.
Because when you have so many ideas, it can be like messy. Yeah. I think whenever you try to do something creative. Yeah. I know like I think this is so cool because it's something I'd love to do for my salon. Yeah. Like, would you do more avant-garde? Is that kind of the direction that you like to go? Or would you do more like every day?
Yeah. For me personally, like I'm always working toward that high fashion editorial. Like that's
which I think that's so fun.
Yeah. That's the work that I would one day want to do all the time. Yes. So any opportunity for that, like, yes. You know, because especially for like a salon like Natural Alternatives, like they'll get the corporate commercial stuff from Aveda, you know, they'll get that content. Yeah. They have it. Yeah. So the stuff that they're looking for is like, what is the artful side of our work? And let's kind of elevate that.
I love that. That's so fun. So you do like every season?
Yeah, we'd been doing it seasonally. We kind of took off for December, like winter time.
Yes. Well, it's such a busy time in the salon. Like we kind of do that too.
Yeah. And
it's kind of like I can't take on. I even took some time off from recording even this podcast. Because I'm like literally from Thanksgiving on, like I'm swamped. It's like we need to take a break. Like my brain can't take anymore.
Yeah, because like everybody's in town.
Yes, and trying to get their hair done. Yeah. So that's so cool. So what has it been like to work in? Like, what do you think as an outsider looking in, like the ties between like the hair world and fashion? Like
it's so completely
immersed.
Like I'm a type of person, I like to style outfits and like do that thing, and that's part of my, you know, Instagram and all that stuff. And I've been asked before, like, what's your go-to like accessory? And I'm like, well, lipstick. You know, it's not 100%. It has everything to do with how you're presenting yourself that day, and how a look comes together. Like something as small as like what mascara you're using can make a difference in the overall look of whatever you're photographing, whatever you're styling.
I love that. You're very stylish even today. Like I love your outfit and everything. Do you like to do that for like your friends?
Yeah, well, I would. I kind of got into it more.
Or even like as a part of your business to kind of pick out things.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it always comes with helping people like plan these shoots. Like, you know, in school they would call it like mise en scène, like what's on camera. And ultimately, if you're going for an overall look, like the wrong color of a top will cancel that out. So it's always kind of a part of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, what I really believe in is the specialization of trade, right? If I'm not the most knowledgeable on style, I will bring in someone like Ben to help me because I'm like, here's my vision. What do you know as a stylist that can accomplish that?
And I love that. And I feel like that like makes you a successful business owner, even a successful creative. So I feel like sometimes like we can have egos too.
Yes. And there's so much ownership.
Yes.
You know?
And you kind of have to be like, okay, like I'm not strong in this area and that's fine. I've accepted that. Now I need to find who is the badass in the room.
Yeah.
That's going to help elevate this.
Exactly.
To the next thing.
Once you let go of that a little bit, the work gets better.
I 100% agree. Even when it comes to like hair color, cutting, extensions, like what we do at my salon, like whenever that person finds their niche, like they flourish.
Yeah.
And you just kind of have to let them do it. You know what I mean? Just let everybody find what they want to do. And then when you work as a team, magic happens.
Yeah.
So
I sort of recently discovered that I can handle some watches, like jewelry wise. Watches are kind of tough.
I bet.
The face of them is like very reflective. So to light it well, it's a lot of trial and error and it gets really annoying.
Yes.
And so now like the shoot we just did, nobody touched the watches. They're like, Amy's got it.
Oh,
because it becomes like my thing.
It's your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that.
And other stuff like white stones, I'm like, hey, Kate, come help me out with this or whatever. So.
Yes, that's good. Now, when you work with a salon, do you bring a whole team of people with you or is it just you?
The team so far, excuse me, has been built out by like the salon themselves. Okay. I come in. You
kind of consult the team and see.
Yeah, my goal is for like when I'm doing salon work specifically is like I want their creative vision to flourish. It's not about me necessarily.
Okay. So you like to come in and meet everybody and kind of see.
And I'm like, what do you guys want? And what can I do lighting, backdrop, you know, style of photography wise to accomplish that. And like specialization of trade, I'm not a makeup artist.
Yeah.
Like there are things that I won't even come up with because I don't know.
Yeah.
So again, holding each decision up to that central theme, whatever. But then Ben as the creative director is kind of like, okay, I want our looks to kind of look like this. And then each individual stylist has the opportunity to then
kind of put their spin on
it. Yeah.
I love that. Have you ever thought about even like team pictures?
Yeah.
Like doing like a whole like vibe to show. So I feel like I have this idea for our salon to do like almost a shoot for our staff.
Yeah.
And like to like elevate it.
Absolutely.
Not just like the typical here's your
headshots. Yeah.
She's so great.
Yeah.
She loves this. Like that would be so cool.
Yeah. Stuff like that is becoming like even more popular too. Kind of getting people out of context and into a new one.
Yeah, and so you can like see them from a different light, I guess.
Yeah.
So let's talk about one of your major accomplishments. I know that you've had some pictures featured in Vogue.
Yeah.
So tell me about how that happened.
So honestly, it was such a shock to me because I was originally like at work. The information being on a creative team in a corporate setting is really different.
Yes.
You know, you get information from like a very small amount of channels. Yes. So the decisions that are being made often with what you've put out is like it's hearsay. You hear it through the grapevine.
Yeah.
So
it's not like you're being called into a meeting about it. Yeah. Usually it's like a corporate level.
It's like, exactly. Happening. Like, so we shot this whole big group of photos for this new brand that we launched called Jedora. And they were wanting for their original launch to get it in like higher end magazines.
Yes.
And I kind of was like, okay, sure, you know, not necessarily like married to the idea that mine would end up in any of them.
Yes.
Just more so like, okay, this is something that could happen. And it was funny. I was like supposed to go out of town and I was going to miss the deadline for them. And so I picked up some overtime hours to finish like a couple pictures so I could at least have a few in the running. And my boss was kind of like, you know, don't feel like you need to stress to get them done. I was like, I'm young and hungry. I want my stuff in Vogue, you know? Like, why
exactly.
not? So I kind of had just a couple that met the deadline, and I had heard, you know, you hear things, you hear like, yes, we got Vogue, or no, we didn't get Vogue. And there was a conversation. It was like, well, maybe we got British Vogue. I don't think we got US Vogue. So I'd kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
But I'm a Vogue subscriber.
Yes.
So I got my, I thought it was a December issue. It's actually the January issue. Okay. And I was just kind of, you know, flipping through it. I love the day when you get your Vogue and you sit down and read it.
Just look at everything.
And I'm flipping through and skimming, and I'm like, wait a second, that's my picture. And I like got so excited.
Oh my gosh. I bet that was the best feeling.
It was awesome. I was like jumping up and down and screaming, and I like ran in. My husband's on the phone with his mom, and I was just like, and I like run in, and his mom's like, is she okay? And I'm like, I'm fine, I'm great.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
But it was really cool. And you know,
especially that's like almost like a movie to me, like a movie scene. Like, and you're like, wait a second, this is my copy.
Yeah. So. And like a couple of my friends on the team that I'd worked with had found theirs in full page ads and like Allure, or I want to say Vanity Fair, Cosmo, or something else. Yeah. So I knew that they were out there and that I might have something out there, but I had no idea.
No. That it's not like they told you like, hey, like this picture from this that you took is going to be in this.
Yeah.
Because was it an ad?
It was an ad.
Oh,
it was
that's awesome.
Sort of strip page ad sort of at the edge of the page. Yeah. And it's honestly the two pictures of mine that are in there are tiny, like this big.
But hey.
But I was like, it doesn't matter. It's in there.
Yes.
This is, you know, step one. I know. Getting your foot in the door.
I know. Well, and I've had something similar happen in like, we as a salon got a bride in like Southern Living magazine. And like we weren't credited for it. We weren't anything. It was like just like they picked up from like the photographer, but it's the best feeling in the world. You're like, wait a second, like all this hard work that I do day in and day out, like here it is. Here's something awesome. And it happened
to be the two pictures that I had like basically worked overtime to turn in.
Yeah.
That
may not have even happened.
Right. Because like my boss was happy to like give me till Monday because I was going out of town for the weekend. He was like, just don't stress about it.
Yeah.
You know, I have a great system at JTV. I have no complaints.
Yes.
But I was just kind of like, no, I'm going to do this just, you know, you never know.
Yes. How long does it take to set up a shoot like that?
So our team, I'm proud of our team. We've been doing it for long enough to where if we needed to, we could set it up tomorrow. Now it would suck, but the work would still be good. It would suck to have to do that. Yeah. However, we could do it. You know, it kind of depends on what we're doing. JTV is like, it's been around a long time. We know what to do. It's very much like we have months in advance. So, for example, we shot Valentine's Day for 2022 in like early December.
Yes.
Because we want to have the content, you know,
it's ready to go.
Right.
Which that makes complete sense. Yes.
And then for, you know, Jedora, we shot Valentine's Day last week. So it's different because they're still building the process out. Ideally, you would want like a month or so.
So, like, as you grow in your career, for those people that want to go into what you do, would you use that as a part of your resume? Like, what is even like the interview process with what you do?
So, like, you know, I came from like a STEM businessy background.
Yes.
And so the kind of funny thing, like, and both my older sisters are engineers. The funny thing that we always talk about is like how our interview processes look completely different. Like at this point, I don't think people really read my resume. The first thing they want to see is my portfolio.
That's
like,
exactly it's the same in the hair world. Like,
it's like, I don't care where you've worked. Show me what you got, kind of thing.
Yes.
And then that gets you maybe the interview, and then you talk about maybe the experience you've had and how it's relevant.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that I would tell people like going into this field is the level of specificity is surprising.
Yeah.
People think that, you know, you're a photographer, so you could do jewelry, or you could do, you know, models, or you could do cars. There are specializations all across the board, and companies are looking for that. Okay. So like JTV, when we hire, we're looking for somebody who shoots jewelry because it's specific. And I'm sure somebody who does, you know, who's hiring a car photographer is looking for somebody who does that.
Or even food. I've heard there's a lot that goes like into food.
Yeah.
And I'm like, or just product in general.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that, you know, the scary thing that we're all told when you major in art is like, good luck finding a job. Well, there are a lot of jobs out there.
Yeah,
if you think
it's our
about
whole world.
If
now.
you think about the amount of content that you ingest as a human being, not related to your work, like there's an artist out there making that, and that could be you if you want it to be.
Yeah.
So, you know, don't be so scared. Don't let the haters tell you can't find a job. There's jobs everywhere, and they're looking for specifically what your skill set is. You just have to find it.
I love that because I feel like as creatives, because we're like one and the same, it's kind of like that when you choose to go to beauty school too.
Yeah.
People are like, you're never going to make a living. Like, you're not going to make any money. When now the world's changed.
Right.
Like,
and everybody's getting their hair done.
And
Who's
we're rebels. Like, and it's like, I feel like for the people that maybe their brains don't think more in like a, I don't know, like a safe route.
Yeah.
Like what we do is very scary.
Yeah.
But if it's your passion, and I say this all the time, like if you love doing what you love to do, like you will be successful.
Exactly.
And success is defined by so many different things. It doesn't have to necessarily be monetary. But if you're happy with what you're going to do, like I believe God will provide for you.
Absolutely.
That's 100% my thing.
And it's more so too, like, you know, I've sat here and told you all the wonderful things that have happened. I've had heartbreaks in this job. You know, I've had a lot of people not call me back. Criticism every single day. We operate on criticism. Like that is our currency.
Yes.
Like, you know, it's not as often you hear like, this is great, this is perfect, keep doing this. It's like you hear from them when something's wrong.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
No.
What defines the people who stay in it, I think, is the people who want to stay in it. If you are still happy doing it, just don't give up. Really, keep trying. And if you don't find that job immediately, like keep trying.
Yeah.
So
I love that, and I think that goes for anything creative, you know, because like your art is your art and your vision's your vision, and as long as you just keep on trucking on.
Like, and it's easier said than done, and I'm sure you know this because when you're putting out. It's a level of vulnerability when you're putting anything that you make out there.
Yes.
And so criticism on that feels personal, even though it's not.
It is not. And even like if it was like the best thing that, you know, you've ever done, and if somebody doesn't like it, it's still gut wrenching.
Right.
Like you're like, wait, why?
Right.
You know?
And you spend so much time with it. So you fall in love with it and you're not ready to hear it. I think that was the best thing that the School of Art did for me was every single assignment we turned in was evaluated and critiqued by all of your peers plus your professor.
And so you had to get that thing.
You had to get used to it.
You know what? That's probably like we kind of do an associate program, and we don't necessarily like critique, but we like say, okay, this could be better. This could, you know, let's try this next time, because you really do kind of need that in order to grow. Like if everything's perfect and if everything's great all the time, you don't ever really learn anything new. And so I love that.
And becoming a good critiquer, I think, makes you a better artist because, you know, you learn to like look at something and ask the question, I wonder why you made this choice.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad choice. It's like, I wonder, you know, where that came from. I want to
know the story behind it.
Right. What's the story? And I think hearing the answer to that is either completely unsatisfying. It's like, oh, aesthetically. And you're like, boo, you know?
Like, no, I really, like, you want to get down deep.
Yeah. So learning to create from that place is also,
I love that. I'm like inspired to go back to the salon and create, even just having this like conversation.
That's awesome. I love that.
So what would be, to wrap this up, like, what would be your advice for someone in art, digital creating, or even like stylists that are trying to do something different on Instagram, social media? What would be like your top tips for social media?
Okay. For social media specifically, Number one, there is space for you. There is space on the app for you. There is TikTok has reinvented what we think of as the algorithm, and everybody is getting a more personal experience on their own page. So there is somebody out there who's going to connect with what you make, even if it's not viral.
Yeah.
So there is space
the goal
for you.
May not always be to be viral.
Exactly.
Like, you're not like failing because you're not viral. I love that.
Micro influencers make a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? And not necessarily that you want to be one, but just in the sense of like, even if you don't have this crazy following, like you're still doing something for yourself by putting effort into it.
Yeah.
That being said, a safe separation is also good. You know, and I promote that for anything that you're doing, your work, your job, whatever, your social media. You know, you have to have time where you turn it off and you walk away from it. My husband, like when I make reels, I watch them a lot. I think everybody does it.
Yeah.
And my husband will literally be like, all right, it's time to turn it off. Like, you're just going to turn it off. And I'll do it. I'll put it in a drawer. Yeah. And I'm like, I want to sit here and watch a show with my husband and not think about it. And it's healthy to kind of have that.
Yes. And I think we've gotten away from that so much because, like, they know what they're doing. It's addicting.
Yeah.
And, like, I'll just be like, I'll just be on here for a few minutes to, you know, pass some time. And then I'm like, oh, shit, what was I supposed to be doing?
Right.
Doing this. Like, 30 minutes later, I'm, like, in a rabbit hole, you know? So, yeah.
And then the last thing I think would be, if you have an idea, make it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, you know, your first one will not be that great, and that's fine. But you've got to get it out there before you're going to make the better ones. You've got to have that practice. So if you have an idea and you bank it in your head somewhere, one, you're probably going to forget it. But two, you're stunting your other ideas in the future. And I think right now the social media world operates, and this is not necessarily a great thing, but it operates a little bit in quantity over quality type thing. Yeah. You want to have your numbers.
Yeah.
So if you have an idea for a reel or a post, stop what you're doing and do it within healthy boundaries, of course.
Yes.
And you will find that
don't look at it again.
And don't look at it. Yeah. Put it out and don't look at it. Even if it embarrasses you, don't watch it. You don't have to. No. You know,
I love that.
Doing it when you think of it has been revolutionary for me, because then I'm not like, oh, and come up with something today.
Well, because I know with me, like, I get that and then I get down and then it clouds my creativity. Like, if I had a really great day behind the chair and I'm like, shoot, I didn't do any content. Like, I was just like, whatever. And that would have been so great if I would have done this with her, this with her. And then it gets you down and then you're not, I don't know.
Yeah. I think for me, like, the anxiety of creating it will often make it something bigger than it is in my brain. Mm-hmm. Like, if I just stop and put my phone on, like, a chair and do a little time lapse, it takes almost no effort. But in my mind, if I build it up, sometimes I'm like, oh, I won't have time, or that'll be distracting.
Exactly.
And it's not.
And
You're
then
fine.
too, like, I feel like put like the simplest videos put to the right song, like, are so powerful. Yeah. Like, some of the ones that we've done as the salon that have been so simple have gotten the most engagement.
Yeah.
That we're like, we're just going to put this out there because we need something.
Yeah.
But then they end up being the ones that, like, resonate with our audience. So
yeah, I think crazy. 20 seconds is my sweet spot I shoot for, because it's really hard to hold somebody's attention for longer than 30.
Yeah.
And if it's only 10, you're not maybe leaving a lasting impression. Yeah. So I kind of shoot for that 20 seconds. And sometimes it's more than that. You know, if you do a video about your entire day, you're not going to condense it in 20 seconds. No. You know, so it just depends on what you're making. But that is kind of when I'm creating content for jewelry television and myself, that's kind of what I shoot for.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Amy, for coming on. Tell us again where we can find you.
Yeah. So the biggest place that you can find me is at my Instagram. Okay. It's at am, and then it's Amy Lee, Lee.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.